Welcome to the podcast, Dr. Jones.
Thank you. Good to be here.
As I was saying, I've got to thank Mr. Jonathan Jones. I don't know if there's a relationship there, but he was kind enough to request some guests that I should have on my podcast. And I was like, hey, if it's coming from the podcast man himself, I'd be more than honored to.
Jonathan is my podcast coach and mentor. He also would happen to be my second born son.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, I see some similarities, and it's like it makes sense.
Yeah. Jonathan, phenomenal guy, doing some phenomenal things out there. He's a leader in that podcast space. He's carved out his own lane there, and he's doing some tremendous stuff. So if any, podcasting is his game. As you guys would say, that's his jam. That's his jam. That's what he's saying.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I always like to ask every guest this question: who do you say you are?
You set me up. Oh, that sounds like something out the Bible. Who do you say that you are? I
Yes,
am
sir.
that I am, right? Who do
That's
you
exactly
say you
where
are?
I got it.
I like the question. Love the question. Okay, who do I say I am? I am the world's only worthologist.
What's that?
I'm glad you asked. A worthologist is one who believes that your value is unlimited. Your worth is without measure, but your price is what you're willing to accept. A worthologist sees worth in every person and believes that that worth is unlimited. However, unfortunately, Mr. Tchoua, too many of us give discounts on who we really are. So my goal in life, mission, is to help people embrace the fullness of who they really are in God. I do that as a worthologist.
I like that.
Yeah.
So how did you start down this path?
I do a lot of things professionally, right? I'm a lawyer on paper. I'm a retired tenured college professor. I've published books. I've done a lot of things, right? With those kind of things, right? And so I was in this coaching event in Atlanta, Georgia, several years ago, looking to brand myself, right? I wanted a brand. How could I be that category of one, competitor of no one, right? So I was looking for that category of one. And so I had this coach and mentor, and we were trying to come up with the one word that would capture all of my giftings. And that one word happened to be worthology. And there's a story behind it. I was at this conference, and there's Miss America was being questioned by the host of the conference. And Miss America, she asked her one question. She says, Miss America, what's the biggest challenge with being Miss America? And the young lady stood up to the mic. She said, feeling unworthy. I sat back in my chair and I said, no, you're Miss America. You can't be unworthy. And it was a faith-based group. And I'm like, wait a minute, something's not right about this. And I left that event saying, wait a minute, I've got to address that. And it was on my heart. And I'm like, wait a minute. Wow. All those women there are women of worth. I'm like, wow. And if she's feeling unworthy, the opposite of unworthy is worthy. And I left there saying, wow, I'm going to do something about this. And it was like, wow, women of worth. And I began to move down that lane and saw myself as a worthologist. And I help everyday people, experts, and entrepreneurs walk in their worth, value their voice, and tell their story.
Yeah. Sounds like you're the right guest to be on the podcast.
Well, as we were talking in the green room before we came in, I was like, got it. Okay. Yeah. Every person has a story to tell, right?
Right.
Every person is significant to somebody, right? But we often dim our light because someone else's seems brighter, and we forget that our light is bright for somebody else if we just let it shine.
Right. That's a great point. And the thing about that, it seems like, can you speak about what that moment was for you when you're at the conference and you see someone that's placed on a pedestal, literally, and saying like, okay, this is someone of worth. This is Miss America, but she is expressing a a feeling of worthlessness. Like what was that like for you seeing that kind of play out?
It was a sad moment. It was it was sad. I was like, whoa, you got a crown on your head, you got the scarf around your body saying Miss America, the flowers in your hand and everything, and you're on the top of the world, but yet you're saying you feel unworthy. I'm like, that's a problem. Here's
Mm,
what really happened. After that, after seeing that, it hit me, or it occurred to me.
mhm,
When we put other people on a pedestal,
mhm,
they have no other choice but to look down on us.
mhm,
And that's when I just really stopped and I paused, and I've learned to just see people as people, and I see everybody as a VIP. I see everybody as a 10, and I see people as all winners, and I've just learned to embrace it. But seeing someone who seemed to have had it all and not realizing that they didn't, it really kind of reinforced to me how we all need validation, affirmation, acknowledgement, and acceptance. We all need it. We all are looking for somebody to say, way to go. We
right.
all are looking. And so I felt an assignment in that moment. I
Mm,
felt a calling. And ever since that moment, man, I've been like fired up about this worthology thing. And I've realized that it crosses all races, all sexes, all people
mhm,
struggle. We get extra degrees. We go try to earn a lot of money. We try to build big houses and cars. We do all kind of stuff to enhance our worth. So it gave me a sense of mission and a sense of purpose.
That's that's awesome. I guess
Yeah.
for that, like, did you ever feel like you were not worthy, so to speak, like being a lawyer, having the background in education, like becoming a doctor for that matter?
Yeah. See, you asking hard questions here today. I remember when I was in college,
Mhm,
1981, 82, 83, somewhere along those years. I felt so unworthy. There are many times that I felt unworthy, but it was in these moments. It was back then I felt unworthy. And I was in college, and I remember that I went a whole week without taking a bath because I just didn't feel worthy. I didn't feel like I had any value. I was just like down. And somebody told me later on, you must have been depressed. I'm like, oh, I didn't realize that. I just didn't feel worthy. You see, I was born in the 60s during a time of a lot of intense discrimination. And I always saw the other people as better than me. And I always had to fight to feel like I was a part. And the whole system around me, I felt like it was holding me back. I felt the whole system around me was trying to hold me down. And so I always felt unworthy, not enough, didn't feel like it all added up. So ultimately, December the 19th, 1983, as a result of that down feeling and feeling unworthy, I found myself incarcerated. I went to jail for 45 minutes because I was stealing. I was a young guy in college, stealing. I stole. Okay, I was at Sears and Roebuck, and I went to jail for 45 minutes
mhm,
out of all of that unworthiness because I didn't feel like I had worth, and what you had didn't have worth, and so I was just taking things, right? And after I got out of there, that's when the transformation took place for me.
mhm.
My life was transformed December 19th, 1983, and it has never been the same after I got an awakening that God loved me,
Mhm.
God values me, and that God would give me a second chance on life. And when I got that second chance on life, I wanted the new birth. I wanted the new life. And from that day forward, sir, I have never looked back.
How did you how did you get so lucky to only spend 45 minutes?
Because I had a big sister. I got 9 sisters, And
Mhm.
when I went to jail, it was shoplifting. That was what the charge was then. I went to
Right.
jail. They locked me up for a few minutes. I called my sister. She bonded me out or bailed me out or whatever, got me out. But it was so much. I mean, it only took 45 minutes. It wasn't even overnight, you
Right.
know. And I got out. But I had family,
Mhm.
and I had family support, and family came and got me out.
That's what's up. Is good to
Yeah.
be able to count on family. And was it like the experience you had, was it during that 45 minutes, like kind of the realization of like, oh, like things are different now versus like I'm not feeling like I'm worthy. I don't feel like anything that I'm taking. It's like, nobody's gonna miss this. Like what was that? What was that like?
During the 45 minutes or
Right, like,
after.
just did the transformation that you described and, like, having the value that you got from God, was that during the time that you were placed in the cell, or was it after the fact? Did it kinda take days to come about?
It was all happening real fast. And
Mm,
I would say it was kind of simultaneously, right?
mhm,
While I was in there, there was the shaking. And while I was in there, there was the awakening.
mm,
And while I was coming out, there's the acknowledgement. And then
mhm,
as I began to acknowledge, then there came the acceptance. Okay. I had to accept the fact that I was ready to change. And
right,
after I accepted, then I felt the approval of God.
mhm,
Okay. Right. And then after feeling the approval of God, then I just began to walk in the anointing, and I just began to walk in everything that the scripture began to say about me. And it was just an ongoing process. But doing, there was the shake up after I accepted it. And since then, that's why I see the Bible as such a big old gift.
mhm.
And I look at this whole faith thing as something that's so phenomenal that I think some of us overlook because we let it become like a routine or a
Right,
ritual.
right, right.
That thing is real.
I guess the reason I asked that because it's every like we said, everybody has a different experience, and sometimes it's like it takes a moment or it takes an event to kind of get your attention. So it's like I didn't know if you had a background in Christianity before or in having heard the Bible and just being like sometimes when you're just low, you're low. You're not you're not going to think, okay, I know I should take a shower. It's like if you're not thinking about the benefits of what that's going to do, like you're just stuck in the funk. So it's like to go from I'm not worthy to, hey, like I might not be worthy, but that's not going to help me in this situation. Like I'm where I don't want to be. And something's got to be different, but some people don't have that realization even when the situation changes. Sometimes it's just like I'm not worthy, and it's like it's just this constant downward spiral where it's something bad happened, it reinforces the bad thought that you had, which reinforces you to take another bad action, which reinforces another bad thought, and it's like it's just this perpetual thing where it's like there's no end in sight. So that's why I asked the question to know like help me kind of go through it as to what that meant, because sometimes they'll go over someone's head and they'll be like, oh, it's just he's special, he's a doctor, of course he's going to have this good thing happen to him, of course God's going to look out for him, he only looks out for like the best people, this man's well dressed, he looks great. It's like someone can make an excuse to keep the way that they view themselves if it's less than or not good enough to measure up to you, versus like understanding how it is that you can value yourself in your own eyes.
Mm, mm, mm. I believe I understood you. As a person, when I was going through this transition,
Mhm,
I was 19 or 20 years old, I believe.
mm,
And I I was just an everyday kid right out of a country town in Winsboro, Louisiana, and I go to Monroe, Louisiana to college. And I was looking at everybody else and doing what everybody else was doing for the most part, working at a pizza house. preparing pizzas and going to college right across the street. And I had a lot of struggles, as I said earlier, with racial situations. So that mindset, my mindset was constantly wanting to be a part, wanting to fit in, and that struggle was real, and not feeling like I measured up or had what everybody else had. I began to take negative actions, and when those actions brought me into that place, I began to realize, okay, I don't want this result. So
Right.
I need to change the way I'm thinking and change the way I'm behaving and believing. I was in church.
Right.
I grew up in church. Okay.
Mhm.
But the church hadn't totally gotten into me, so to speak.
Mm.
You see, because I heard this quote, you might like this. Behavior is the echo of belief.
I like that.
Behavior is the echo of belief. My behavior was lining up with my beliefs,
Right.
and therefore I was acting bad. But when my beliefs got better about me and how God valued me and sees me, I started behaving better. And it's been an ongoing process. And to this day, I still work to think thoughts that are positive, good, even though, I might look well dressed
Mhm.
and with a bow tie, and I might have a doctorate degree and all that. But all of those, some of my beliefs drove me to get some of the credentials that I got, because I've probably felt like I needed to do all that to feel good about myself. But
Mhm.
in reality, God makes us complete as we are.
I like that because I think it's I like how you said what you said, because sometimes if we just view people on the outside, we kind of miss the whole reason why we do what we do, because there's nothing wrong with looking good, but
Right.
having the importance or having that internal belief that you matter as a person, and that's something as great as the creator like sees value in you, even if you don't, like, you look around, you're like, where is this creator? And a lot of times it seems that for people that would not otherwise believe, when they have children, that their eyes kind of open up to say like, okay, although as smart as I am, as wise as I am, like, there has to be something bigger than me, bigger than what I know, that could produce this thing to have all its appendages. Some maybe don't have all their fingers, toes, and all that, but still just like seeing that little person, that little human move around, it's like, well, I guess I kind of helped in making that, but it's he or she is making me think and reflect on myself, how I view me, and I think when you bring that out, I like the way in which you're describing it, because it's your experience, your life. And I'm kind of curious, like, when your sister came to bail you out, what was that conversation like? Did she kind of straighten you up, or was she just like, hey, like, I understand as your big sis?
I don't remember her really saying a whole lot other than just coming to get me. Wasn't any, I didn't get a lecture.
Mhm.
I didn't get scolded. She came and got me and brought me back home,
Mhm.
because the shame of being in that situation was enough of a whipping for me,
Mhm.
because I had grew up in church and in religion and so forth. And my heart, the hardest part about that situation, was facing my parents. The embarrassment that I had caused my family was the hardest thing to overcome. The sister, she received me, supported me, and helped me, and that was all right. But it was having to look at my parents after that, which was the hard part.
Right. But that's kind of cool that, like, with your upbringing that you have, although what led you to that point of being in the cell, some of that might have been forgotten, but like once you're on the outside, like those things kind of come back to be like, well, okay, I know I wasn't supposed to be here. Like, jail isn't something that's glorified. Like, you're not getting any street cred when you're going at home. They're like, oh, like, good job. It's like, no, like you're gonna get a talking to, but you already knowing that kind of speaks to how you were raised and the value you were given to place on certain things. So it's very cool seeing that, and also in the way that you tell stories and having a conversation with Jonathan before, and him kind of sharing like how the import the importance of storytelling, it really breathes life into like a situation, into like interactions that you have. It's it's really nice.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Yeah, it's just been quite a journey, but I'm loving it, and I'm glad to be here having this moment to talk with you about it.
Awesome. So how did you, so after that incident, you're in college, how does the rest of your time go into what you're looking to pursue, and how you eventually like even start your family? How does that all play out?
Well, after that shakeup in college, I recaptured myself and got focused and graduated. I graduated in under college, and I was a pre-law major. I went on to apply for law school and
Mhm.
ultimately got accepted in law school. And after going to law school, that was a journey in of itself. Got married and got a family,
Mhm.
and that worked out well until the last year of law school, and then the marriage fell apart.
Mm.
So that was kind of like the next big bump there in life. So tell me what you want to know. Which part of that do
Well,
you want to
right.
unpack?
So I guess we'll go with law school first. Like, how did you decide on law school, or what kind of drew you to that?
Oh man, what drew me to that? Oh, see, while I was in college,
Mhm.
the struggle was real, right? I
Mhm.
was still fighting to advance the efforts of people that look like me.
Mhm. What
Help
year was this?
1978 to 1983.
Mhm.
78 to 83. Minorities of blacks were marginalized. I mean, we weren't put in the yearbook to the same ratio other students were. We were assigned to the cafeteria, janitorial work. We didn't have black professors at the college at a level that we thought they should. And so I was fighting for all of those causes as an undergraduate student, being a part of student organizations that advance the efforts of blacks. And so while I was 19 in college, I filed a lawsuit against the state of Louisiana and the university that I was a part of when I was a kid. Well, the lawsuit didn't go anywhere because what? We didn't have enough money and we didn't have a lawyer. And I'm like, okay, we had a lawyer, but we didn't have enough money to keep the lawyer on
Right.
the case to really fight it. And as a result, while going to college and looking at all the things that I felt was not fair, not right for everyday people like me, I
Mhm.
decided to go to law school. I said, I'll keep this journey going. I'll keep the fight going, and I'll go to law school. So sure enough, I decided to go to law school because I still wanted to advance the cause of marginalized people, the
Mhm.
cafeteria workers, the janitors. I wanted to help those people. I just didn't think the way they were being treated was right. And I wanted to fight for it. And that's where I'm still there because that's what's really behind Worthology. See, scripture says, to the degree you love the least of them, you love me. It's how you treat the least. It's how you treat those who you think are the least is the real measure of your character. I'll say this and then I'll pass the mic back to you. The way you treat someone you think you don't need is a reflection of your character. The way you treat people, the way you treat people who you think you don't need
Mhm.
is a true reflection of who you really are.
Man. Oof. I guess that kind of goes across the board because it's what's interesting about present day now in 2022 is like, and I guess throughout 2020 and really seeing what's been popularized either through media and news or different things like that, maybe some politics, but it's like I think that gets missed what you just said about the way you treat people versus because some people think, okay, if I was in a marginalized group, there's a distinction of like you don't want to be marginalized or treated as less than because you want to just be able to have access to what other people have and make your own way as the best you can. But I think some people take it to an almost malevolent or devious sense of saying like an eye for an eye, like what you
Mhm.
did to me, I'm going to do to you. And there's a lot of overtones where when people, I don't know if you'd say like they overcorrect, but for me,
Mhm.
it's interesting like hearing your story because me, I was born in Cameroon, West Central Africa, immigrated to the States at 7. So it's like I grew up in Georgia, North Georgia. Now I live in South Georgia, but it's like having an outsider's perspective, so to speak, to where it's like you're foreign, African American born, like immigrated, became naturalized, but people, a lot of people can just see you as black, where
Right.
black people see you as black, white people see you as black in America. But
Mhm. Mhm.
a lot of people kind of make assumptions and distinctions about like, okay, well, in order to fit this mold, you have to do this, you have to do that. And then when you don't do that, they're just like, well, maybe you're not black. And it's like, wait a minute, what are we really talking about here? Is it like, are you trying to categorize me in order to know how you can deal with me or not deal with me? Or are you really trying to understand the person with whom you're speaking with? Because it's like, if we're not trying to understand each other, then I don't think we're really doing anything. Maybe we're just like two ships passing in the wind. They're just waving at each other, and it's okay. Like there's no interaction, no discussion that needs to happen. But having the opportunity to speak with you and actually see how you dealt with things going through school and having that experience, it gives me context of knowing like who you are versus just like, oh, like every black person's had this or every, it's like, no, not every, like not everyone decided to become a lawyer or an engineer, but like seeing that your drive came from opposition that you met and then you decided to do something about it from either one submitting the lawsuit first and then saying, okay, the lawsuit didn't work, but I'm going to take it a step further and I'm going to apply myself in this area despite what's going on. I'm not trying to say that everybody should just do this, but I think it's a good example of um, options that can be made possible if you're willing to give them a try versus thinking there's just one way to do this or one way to do that. It's like a lot of things can be true at the same time.
Wow, Mr. Tchoua, you're picking up more than I'm putting down. That was powerful. That was powerful. You know, you were saying how people want to be understood, right? How people want to
Mhm.
be understood, right?
Right.
Well, here's something that I've really come to discover. It's easier to label someone and leave them
Mhm.
than it is to love them and live with them.
Mhm.
We like to label people because we want to leave them and push them aside.
Right.
But if you're going to love people, you have to understand them and embrace them.
That's hard.
That's hard. That's hard. Love helps you to embrace. And ultimately,
Mhm.
that's what I've come to. The scripture says, he that loveth fulfills the whole law.
Mhm.
Love is the answer. And when we all see that no matter what the opposition is or what it appears to be like,
Mhm.
that person on the other side really are hungry for love. They want to be understood. They want to be acknowledged. They want to be recognized.
Yeah.
And when we can give them that and love them, then we can, share our message of hope and inspiration to them and make this world a better place.
I like that. I guess, how have you learned to love and still value yourself without trying to love someone and not devalue yourself?
Wow. Wow. Love the question. Love the question. A few years ago, first off, I have had to really get centered on who I am.
Mm.
And who I am has nothing to do with anything outside of me, but it has everything to do with what the maker has put on the inside of me.
Mhm.
And so as I have become centered in me, I realized that there are 7.8 billion people in the world. I have developed a global mindset, and I don't see myself and my life only from a Western perspective. I see myself and my life from a worldwide perspective, and I've learned to love me in spite of the trappings on the outside of me that want to marginalize and minimize me. Did that make sense?
Yes,
I,
but
I, I've just,
can you break it down a little bit more for me? Can you give me an example?
I'm not defined by the evening news.
Mm.
I'm not defined by politics.
Mhm.
I'm not defined by my skin color.
Right.
I'm a man. I'm a child of God. I have worth regardless of what our government says about me. And I have worth and value regardless of what some political leader might say about me.
Mhm.
And I take my affirmation and my value from scripture, from God. I'm a person of faith. And so I let that play out as opposed to being identified by my degree, my money, my color, or any of those things.
So I
You
guess,
op-
yeah,
Mhm.
go
Go
ahead.
ahead. Go ahead. Mhm.
No, I was gonna say, so again, maybe to go a little bit deeper or
Sure.
more basic, it's like, how does that work for you when you go about your day tomorrow morning, first thing Monday, first day of the week, you wake up, get ready to go out into the world?
I go to the gym
Mhm.
and I work out in an environment where um, people don't look like me, right?
Mhm.
Right. Okay. All right. But I go and I do me.
Mhm.
I go for the purpose that I'm going. Ooh, and here's what I've learned.
Yeah.
And I'll say this carefully. I've come to realize that I have an assignment,
Mhm.
and my assignment is to be what I want to see, give what I want to get, and live what I want to leave. You say, huh? If I want to erase racism per se, then don't I be that way? Go and be a blessing to the people that I meet. Love the people that I meet. Encourage the people that I meet. I live my life to be the answer to somebody else's prayer. That's the way it works out for me every day. Now, is it easy? No. Do I have to fight off thoughts in my mind? Yes. But I go to be a blessing. For example, today, wife and I was leaving the grocery store, Sam's, okay? And so we're leaving the grocery store, and there's these three ladies there attempting to put this huge box in the back of this vehicle. And And the wife and I had walked past him, and I looked and I said, "Dear, you mind if I help those ladies?" She said, "Sure, go do it." Went, helped them, gave them a hand, and it was one of the most pleasant experiences. It was almost like that act was worth more than me just going to church. I'm not big on just going to church.
Mhm.
I'm bigger on being the church. And not so much church. Be the Christ that we want to call people to embrace.
Right.
Be that Christ. And I try to walk that out every day by building up people, encouraging people.
I like that very much. And I think the thing I like about it is, like you said, focus on being the thing you want to see in the world. And just the more you focus on that, I guess the less you become preoccupied with what other people are doing or what other people are not doing. And I was speaking with my younger brother about um when it comes to, what would you say, either content creation or just even having a job or just finding your value, so to speak, in the world. It's about meeting a need that's needed versus just something that's convenient. Because it's like you could be doing 100 different things. If they all meet your needs, great. And if they all are worth something, great. But if you're doing things and you're not getting what you need out of them, or no one is valuing it in your eyes, or no one's paying you for it, you might be doing too many of the wrong things. But if you align yourself with what it is that somebody should be doing, this is like, okay, maybe you have to do that thing. And you're not just going to get up and do it, but maybe take some time to research and see, okay, who else has tried this before? Why have they succeeded? Why have they failed? Or what is it that they need help with? Like, is there something that I could do? Is there something I could learn? Is there, it's like, it pays to know where you fit in or where you can be of service at times, or just be yourself versus always trying to just make something up just to stand out. It's like you stand out naturally by being yourself. But if you're so preoccupied about what this person's thinking about you, what that person's thinking about you, and everything else under the sun, it's like you're more trying to be this or be that. Like you're like, I don't know if I'd say a chameleon, like a confused chameleon, so to speak, because a chameleon will blend to its surroundings. It knows exactly, like, okay, this is green, let me turn green. This is gray, let me turn gray. It's like it knows how to blend into its environments. But if you're not clear on what you need to be where you are, then it makes life more difficult for you, and it can make it like a whole exercise routine, almost, so to speak.
Yeah, that's really true. That's really true. Clear purpose attracts assistance.
Mm,
So when we get clear, it will attract people. Rick Warren said that. Yeah, 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 yeah. You have to be authentically you, and
mhm,
the more authentically you are, the more consistently you can do that. So
mm,
you shared a great point with your brother there,
yeah.
because trying to be, it's an effort to be somebody else.
Mm.
Yeah,
But
it's a lot of
he's
effort.
doing a good job. He's coming into his own.
Oh, I'm certain that he is, if he's connected to you.
But I guess, kind of going back to the thing about going to law school, um, when you do that, what did you decide to focus on? Because I didn't know this about law, that there's so many disciplines. Like, I'm used to looking on network television or seeing like Special Victims Unit, NCIS, and there's like so many different TV shows, but a lot of, or I think those are police officers, not lawyers. But a lot of times you'll see a show on TV that displays like, hey, this is law and this is the excitement of it, but you don't see the how many cases you've got to read, and like, because that's not entertaining television. But what is it that you decided in law, like what is that sector called in helping marginalized people?
Intellectual property law.
Mm,
Okay. Intellectual property. When I first heard the word intellectual property in 1991, my ears stood up. I'm like, intellectual property,
mhm,
property of the mind, not property of the hands. That's intellectual property, property of the mind, not property of the hand. You say, break that down. There are three categories of intellectual property: trademark, copyright, and patent.
mhm,
Trademark, copyright, and patent. We trademark our ideas. We copyright our writings,
mhm,
and we patent our inventions. Okay, patent inventions. Trademark is our ideas, our marks in trade.
mhm,
Copyright is all the things that we write. Everyday people have a boatload of intellectual property.
mhm,
This podcast is intellectual property. The moment it's recorded, it's your IP.
mhm,
The moment it's transcribed, it's your intellectual property. That area of law has always fascinated me because many of the people in this country have been marginalized
mhm,
because their IP has been exploited.
mhm,
Motown, even before Motown, a lot of the writers, they didn't have lawyers. They didn't understand how to protect their intellectual property. Now people are writing books. A lot of people are writing books, course creators, content creators,
mhm.
and they're not thinking of that intellectual property piece. That's the part that fascinated me, because intellectual property, 2/3 of the world's wealth is in intellectual property. And if you want to pass on legacy, you do it through intellectual property.
Wow, man, that that had not crossed my mind.
It's your IP,
Yeah,
the digital IP.
right. Every time I think about an IP, I think about it in that the digital sense, where it's where you are virtually, and now you have the different softwares like NordVPN or things that the virtual private network that helps you kind of move around where you are to where you're not constantly followed around, so to speak. But the intellectual property, I I never, I guess it's one of those things, like you hear acronyms and you're like, oh, like this means that, and that means all of this. You said 2/3 of the world's wealth comes from that.
IP. Yeah, that's where it is. And probably it's growing now because of the digital age. Probably
Mhm.
more of it is growing. A company like Apple, that's an IP company. Everything is IP. It's
Right.
it's all the big companies. Google is
Mhm.
IP.
Right.
YouTube IP.
Man. So I guess, how do you help people like your clients understand that as you've worked with them over the years?
I teach them to self-publish.
Mm,
Whatever you're doing, publish it yourself,
mhm.
because the publisher has rights,
Right.
the writer has rights,
Right.
the author has rights.
Mm,
When the publisher is the writer and the author,
mhm.
that person controls all of the rights. Self-publish. It's one of the best control moves
Mhm.
that any creator can make. Course creator, podcast creator, YouTube creator, publish your own works and keep control.
Mhm.
And as you build that platform and then somebody want to buy it, then you can sell them all the rights to what you have created. But if you get a publisher from the very beginning, a lot of people
Mhm.
say, I want to get a publisher. Well, the publisher is going to have publishing rights,
Mhm.
and you, the author or the writer or the creator, is going to have license rights. And a license is
Mhm.
permission to use.
Right.
And you give a license to the publisher,
Mhm.
they have permission to use it. You own it, but they're controlling it.
I guess with that, like, as many layers as there is to this, is it, do you see people back away from wanting to understand it, because it's like if you get a publisher, it's like, well, they're going to do the work. I'm just going to write it. I'm just going to record this, send it to them. They're the professionals. They've had years of experience. They've got that name that can help me get out there and just be like, here I am.
Many people do back away
Yeah,
because they feel like, oh, that's more than I want to handle. I just want to get somebody else to do it. And as a
right.
result, they give away so much.
Mm,
They give away so much, you know? And so
right.
what I do is I teach people that work with me, my clients, I
Mm,
put them through a program and I teach them self-publishing. And
mhm,
then I also offer them legal forms
right.
that they can have to protect themselves going forward, because I don't want to see someone else getting ripped off. It goes back to when I was fighting in college.
Mhm,
My whole goal was to help our students, and a matter of fact, I went to law school to be a more effective minister. I
mm,
wanted to use my law degree to help people.
right.
So
Which which
I teach it.
which came first? Was it the ministry or the law? Did you find
Many,
both in college or
yeah, both found in college. My ministry calling I accepted in college, and
Mhm.
then I proceeded on to law school after that.
That's a nice
Uh-huh.
pairing, seeing that you're not only a savvy lawyer, but you're a minister that speaks to people and really helps them see that self-worth in themselves.
Yeah, that really fires me up, and helping people to see the power of their story,
Mhm,
the power of your journey.
mm,
All of us are superstars when we let our light shine.
right. I mean, like you mentioned, you having these courses and training people to do this, how can people get in touch with you to um, utilize these resources or just communicate with you?
Sure. My website is drfredjones.com, drfredjones.com. They can go there and get started, find everything that they need to know about me. But if I got a gift for everybody that wants to share their story. If you're listening to me and you want to share your story, go to
Mhm,
drfredjones.com/webinar,
mhm,
drfredjones.com/webinar. And I got a whole share your story, a training on self-publishing so that you can
mhm.
share your story, build a brand, and grow a business.
Man, that's dope. That's very cool. It's
Yeah.
it's good to see that you're able to provide that service for people and kind of steer them in the proper direction rather than being misled. And then say if you get into the Hollywood business, the music industry, and things like that, and then you don't want to turn into another horror story to just be like you got taken advantage of, and it's like rinse and repeat. Like this happened, that happened, that happened. It's like they tell you the first or second part. By the end of it, you know how the story plays out.
You're exactly right. You're exactly right. Knowledge is a game changer, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. If you don't know, I like to tell people ain't never been there,
Mhm.
can't tell going there, how to get there.
I love these sayings.
Yeah. You don't know what you don't know, and what you don't know is costing you.
Mhm.
And it's all boils down to knowledge. My people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge. So knowledge is the key, man. It's exciting. And I love what you're doing here and serving everyday people. And I love the everyday people aspect of what you're doing, because that's like, you know what they say? The
Mhm.
richest place on earth is the graveyard, right? So
Right.
many stories go into the grave, Miles Monroe.
Mhm.
But it doesn't have to be that way. We all can tell our story, create legacy, and write our worth. Now, that is what I do
Mhm.
to address that thing. Write your worth. Life is a blank check.
Right.
How big is your belief will determine how big your bank account is.
Awesome. And on that note, I'd like to ask you one last question. Just as we started, are you still who you said you were?
Oh, absolutely. Everything I do comes back to worth. the Worthology. It's write your worth, publish your worth, speak your worth, brand your worth, build your worth, and let nothing that anybody else do outside of you dim your light or cause you to shrink your shine.
Awesome.
And if you'll do that, you can be fulfilled.
Well said, Dr. Jones. Thank you so much for the time today. And it was a pleasure having you on the podcast.
Great to be here. Thank you, and blessings to you and your audience.
Thank you.